Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we're going to be going through the new Mark 1 Automated Infantry by Warlord Games for Konflikt 47. So this is my first piece of Konflikt 47 and attaches on nicely to my many bolt action collections. This is very kindly given to me by Warlord at the Broadside Wargame show, which was yesterday. There'll be more on that in a separate video about the game show, but in a fantastic day. But anyway, this is a new plastic set coming out. The unit itself is not new. I think it's had iterations in metal and Warlord resin and finally into plastic. So I'm jumping in now because plastic is probably the easiest thing to work with, but also a really nice looking kit. I really like the design of these robots. I'm not too familiar with the Konflikt lore, but these guys look cool and that's good enough for me to paint them. So let's open these up. And obviously the first challenge of any model kit is getting through the shrink wrap, which I've just about managed there. There we are, get that right out. So I wanted to do a bit of a show off of the sprues, build a couple up, and then paint one up as well to match my British in Italy. So what do we have inside? There's the bases, and of course, who packed it? Shane. Thank you very much, Shane. You did a good job. So kind of a bit of construction. So they're a mix between infantry and vehicles really, but it seems like you got the back and front parts. Different legs, helmets, and then your mixture of potentially Brownings and Vickers, so MMGs and HMGs. I think these are the same sprue, so and you get a nice little booklet. How to build them up. We could even do one marching. That actually is quite cool. I might do that one. And then the different pairs as well. And of course, bases, 32mm, so a bit larger than the regular infantry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip off some parts and then we can build them together on the video just to show how easily they go together. So I've clipped out all the parts for one of the infantry and I've cleaned them all up and ready to assemble. It seems fairly simple. So step one is just going to be popping the body pieces together. As usual, you can use whatever glue you like. I like the Revel Contactor Professional. It's slightly thicker than Tamiya Extra Thin, and I'm slightly clumsier when it comes to building figures, so it helps just give a little bit of leeway. So anyway, that's the body put together, and then the leg joint seems to be quite nice. They're kind of a ball and socket joint, so it gives you a little bit of variety on how you want to stick them together. So very clear where the glue goes. Just pop them in there. So just get you got a little bit of time before the glue dries, which is always the benefit of working with plastic models. So you can get another piece glued, because the challenge here is going to be getting them to fit nicely onto the base, and the first model getting the pose right, because these are kind of like almost like chicken leg style with these robots, so getting them to sit nicely. Does look like you'd be able to pose them a little bit, but given this is the first one, let's go for just a kind of nice simple standing pose. And we'll dab some glue on the bottom, and then he should sit nicely on the base. We put a tad too much glue on there. There we are, and then it's on to just the arms. You have a bit of a larger socket, which is good, so you can't get confused between the legs and the arms, which sounds pretty obvious, but You'll be surprised at the various mistakes I and many other modelers have done. I'll just give that a simple glue. Again, I probably, when I'm building all of the rest of them, give them a little bit more drying time between each part, maybe do a bit of an assembly line. But as we are building on video here, best to just kind of do it all in one, and then the machine gun fits in like that. So again, just being able to slightly move the parts as they dry means I can set the machine gun in. I've gone for a heavy machine gun here. Given there is 10 in the box, I think it probably makes sense to do 5 with heavy machine guns and 5 with medium machine guns. I'm sure there's probably one that's currently a bit stronger, but that will be fine. And then finally the head. Of course, he's got his little helmet. It's kind of like a Mark II inspired helmet. So before the big redesign of the Mark III, historically helmets. And then these are Mark I automated robots. And there we go. So fairly simple, just kind of standing around, all done, and glued together in about 2 minutes. So I've assembled another one, this time with an MMG in a really fun little standing to attention pose, which is a bit silly because he's a robot, but it's a lot of fun. So these have now been undercoated. I've used Colour Forge's standard grey primer. I mean, do use whatever primer you enjoy the most. I think a darker tone. I used to undercoat black, but I now use the grey, but black would be absolutely fine. But as for colour scheme, so this is a Bren carrier I painted for my bolt action British and Italy, kind of Sicily platoon. And I'd really like to replicate that. Not so much the black spots, but this armour colour. And here's a Vickers gun team that I've also painted. And this is the style I'd like to replicate for the machine guns. So you can see that dark gunmetal, and then a water jacket that's a different colour. So starting off, we're gonna do a main base coat of khaki all over these chaps. So I've given the models an overall base coat of khaki, and now it's to pick out all the other details. So starting with this, German Grey will be used for the metal parts. So that's going to be most of the machine guns, and then you can see a couple of dials and some pipe work at the back. Now once that's been painted, I'll lightly dry brush a gunmetal colour over the metal parts. That way it doesn't look too bright, but it still has that metallic shine. Then I'll use olive grey to paint the helmets to match in with the other British helmets in my platoon. US Field Drab to paint the water jacket on this machine gun here, so this bit here around the barrel, to match in with my other Vickers gun for my bolt action platoon. And then finally just picking out the lenses, mostly on the heads of these robots with Caledor Sky. Then after that, it will be giving them a wash. So all the base coats are applied. I've done a dry brush of metal over the metallic parts, and now the models are ready for a wash. So the metal parts will get a nice coat of Nuln Oil, and everything else will get a generous shade of Agrax Earthshade. So that'll take a little bit of time to dry. I'll apply all them and then come back for dry brushes and final highlights. So the washes have dried on the figures, and they look quite shiny, which is a perk of the new, well I say new, it's been the formula for a couple of years now, of Nuln Oil and Agrax. Don't panic if you do this for your miniatures. There's a step I do later which absolutely rectifies this. But in the meantime, now the washes are done, the next step is to dry brush khaki all over the main body of the figure, and then reapply the helmet colour and the water cooler, leaving some gaps in the recesses to give a bit of definition. So I'm going to do all that, and there'll just be 2 more steps and these figures will be finished. So the dry brush has been done, and then the colour for the helmets and then the water cooler on the right have been reapplied, so it's a bit more definition now. So there's 2 more steps to do, just then basing. So the first thing is these are, you know, as their vehicles. Maybe I'm going to weather them the same way I weather my vehicles a bit. And it's a nice tip. So you take some foam. This is from a KR multi-case, but any blister pack that uses foam, absolutely fine. I think most people have some around. Take a black paint. I've got a Baden Black here. And you just dip, not the light a little bit, just dip it in, get a bit of black on there, and then wipe most of it off on a piece of kitchen roll or whatever you use for dry brushing. And then I'm just going to apply just splashes of it a little bit around the edges, maybe on the joints, just to show like a bit of scratches. Don't go too heavy. Less is always more when it comes to this weathering, but it just breaks it up a little bit, particularly around the joints and the areas. It's a little bit too much there, so just wipe it off with your thumb or finger. And if you do it lightly, it will just catch on those raised bits. In the end, just showing, as these vehicles have been, or these infantry vehicles have been shot at, and bullets have whizzed by and they've pinged off, or fallen over or anything like that. They've just taken a bit of damage. So just very quickly going to do that. And that one's done pretty much. Just, as you can see, a little bit more damage there. And then our good parading robot here, very quickly. Need to be maybe a bit too much there. Again, apologies if I've put off screen, it's slightly difficult to do. There we are. And again, I haven't used much paint at all. I mean, this is still the first dab that I've put on. I haven't had to go back to the pot or whatever. And you can see it's just caught like the little shoulder bits there. We'll just do a bit on the hand as well. And there we are. Do a little bit on the backpack. And across the arm. So, with that done, it's for the final step before basing, which is sorting out this shininess from the wash. And the product I swear by is AK Ultra Matte Varnish. It's just fantastic, really. Application is really easy. I use a base for this. I just squirt it in the base, and you just slather it on with a brush. You don't have to worry about filling it out. Brush it across. Don't leave it really, really thick, but just brush it through the model. Leave it to dry for a couple of hours, and then you'll have a painted model ready for basing. And here we are. They're all finished and based, and I am actually really happy with them. Quite quick to paint because the main body was just dry brushing, but they look quite funky. I like the contrast of the helmet, just adds a bit more, and I think they fit in quite well with the rest of the collection. They don't have the bright flesh, obviously, as they're robots, but they look, I would say, look the part overall. Really fun to build up, and something a bit of a change of pace to paint. So there we are. That's the new Mark 1 Automated Infantry for the British Commonwealth in Konflikt 47. Thanks to Warlord for giving me the box, and I will certainly be painting up the other 8, but unfortunately they've been bumped down the painting queue as these guys were a special reinforcement. Thank you everyone for watching the video, and obviously the shilling, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you soon.